Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
Well, isn't this an educational video? Something I just came across. Check it out. I think this might be useful to some people right now, but what do I know? Hmm, what's that? What is that? Oh, is that our military? Wow, they built a bridge? Wow. So they launch all the sections into the water. They just pop on open. They're hooked up to boats. And then those boats drive them to each other so they can be connected. Wow. That's just, I mean, what situation would you need this for? Could we use this for? What situation could we use this for? Wow. That's amazing, isn't it? Oh, wow. They even slope up to make it easier so there's no big bumps or anything. That way people could safely cross across rivers. What a novel idea. Come on.
As a person who has a lot of faith in our military and knowing that we have mobilized a lot of our National Guard out into those disaster areas, I don't much care for her attitude. We don't know that they're not out there doing that.
And so there are about 110 million Americans who have not chosen to do the Real ID. And all 110 of them and everybody else should choose never to do the Real ID. If you already have one, if you've got a gold star on, go and get a standardized driver's license. If you're afraid of flying, go get your passport. But do not take the Real ID. Because the whole idea here, the state of Pennsylvania asked Trump to shut down this program.
Yep.
They called it a usurpation of states' rights.
Yep.
The federal government has taken over driving and identification over the entire country. And they're going to take all of your primary identification documents and keep them for themselves. You're going to have to give them your social security number, your birth certificate, and your marriage certificate, and they will hold them. They've never had them before. You are essentially recertifying yourself as an American, and then they want to put this and digitize it, put it on your phone, and be able to shut down your access anytime you do something they don't like. This is not a simple ID card, and this is probably going to move into the global UN identification system that the UN wants to create for the entire world. This is your opportunity to shut this down.
I'm pretty sure all of that information is all tied together anyways. You have a regular driver's license or a real ID or a state identification. They still have all that information because you have to provide that information in order to get that piece of documentation. So I guess it doesn't really matter. It's all going towards the New World Order.
Were you guys aware that this was also happening in Mexico around the same time that Hurricane Helene hit North Carolina? Y'all see what happened in Mexico? Why is it only people are talking about North Carolina? Look at that, y'all. Water just everywhere. Dirty, murky, muddy water everywhere. The whole town is literally flooded with water. This is Acapulco, Mexico. Look at that, y'all. Look at that. So apparently there was a storm off the coast of Acapulco over here, and that's all it was supposed to be, y'all. But as soon as it touched down, it literally jumped to a Category 3 hurricane. I didn't even know about this. Look at this, y'all. Mexico experienced about 9 feet of water. Look at this, y'all. Everybody's talking about the North Carolina, but nobody knows what's going on in Mexico. Look at this. In certain parts of Mexico, the water is up to your shoulders.
Helene sure did cause a lot of devastation everywhere that she touched. Milton was no joke either. I saw a video where it just showed the flood waters rising as the tail end of the hurricane come whipping through Florida, and it was just up to like 13 feet. It was pretty crazy. It was pretty devastating.
Why is this such a landmark case, and why do we not know about it? Can you give us a little bit of the history and the history of it not only happening but being silenced?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a law that was passed in the United States called the Toxic Substance Control Act, which allows regular people, American citizens, to petition the EPA if they believe that a chemical or a compound has been proven to be toxic. And in this case, the Fluoride Action Network, Moms Against Fluoridation, and a few different plaintiffs, mothers whose children have been affected by water fluoridation, they filed a petition under TSCA to the EPA in 2016, essentially arguing that the data proves that fluoride is a neurotoxin and that it affects the IQ of children, especially during pregnancy and then postnatal. And the EPA rejected the petition, and this led to a lawsuit. But the first phase of the trial actually began in summer 2020. Of course, it was COVID lockdown, so it took place via Zoom. And I was reporting on it for the Last American Vagabond, doing live tweeting while watching Zoom and just writing articles. And in that first phase of the trial, there were some pretty big revelations that I can share about today. But essentially what happened in 2020, Judge Edward Chin, the federal judge who's overseeing this case, he decided that since the U.S. government's National Toxicology Program, the NTP, was at that time currently studying fluoride, they were doing what's called a monograph. They were doing this massive review of all the data on fluoride, and they were focusing on just the low risk of bias, high quality studies, and trying to decide is this really a toxin or is it not? And so the judge at that time said, you know what, this NTP report's going on right now. Let's just put everything on hold for a moment. Let's wait for this report to come out. And well, fast forward, here we are 4 years later, and the report still hasn't been officially released. But in that time, because of the lawsuit, one of the beautiful things of this lawsuit, and one of the other things that makes it historic, is the Fluoride Action Network and their lead attorney, Michael Conant, who's a brilliant attorney, they were able to do discovery and to file open records requests and to get all kinds of data from the government. And in that process, they obtained emails from the CDC's Oral Health Division, as well as emails that mention U.S. Assistant Secretary of Health Rachel/Richard Levine intervened to prevent the NTP study from coming out. These emails, which we've released in the last year or so, show that the NTP scientists, U.S. government scientists, wanted to release the report in May 2022, but these elements of the U.S. government prevented it from coming out. And the only reason we know that is because of these emails that came out in the lawsuit.
What I want to know is what the fluoride is actually doing to our bodies, because they said it was being put in to help with teeth, but the reduction in cavities is negligible. So what is the fluoride actually doing? Hey, this is the part where I get really close and ask you to do this thing and then do that thing and then come back tomorrow, because I'm making a new episode every day.
They could change the weather in 1920. This is a patent for the process and apparatus for the production of intense artificial clouds, fogs, and mist from 1916. That's when it was applied for. Holy shit. They've had this technology for 120 years. 1891 was the first one. There's the machine. There's the machine. Patented April 27th, 1920. What the f***? And do hereby declare the following to be a full, clear, and exact description of the invention, such as will enable others skilled in the art to which it appertains to make and use the same. That was in 1916. They could change the weather in 1920. If you don't believe me, go on Google Patents.
No. The president said so himself. It's all conspiracy theories.
4-day work week. What's next? 3, 2, great ideas. You don't want workers to have more time off? What are you, running a garment factory in Les Miserables? Imagine being against something that's good for everyone. This is like someone being anti a good night's sleep or trying to abolish free Slurpee day. Ideally, we'd all have the same work schedule as Steve from Blue's Clues. That's where you show up so infrequently, half the internet starts a rumor that you've passed away. You don't understand the value of hard work. No, the person who decides my pay doesn't. I know people's work is valuable. That's why companies should get less of it for the same price. My comedy book, The Customer's Always Wrong, is available now, hardcover and audiobook.
The American workforce is overworked. I know it's such a Gen Z thing to say, but we really are. We have to work 40-hour weeks and then some because everything is so expensive. You have to make that money in order to survive. Other countries, they have vacations, like holidays. We don't get those here. I mean, we get holidays, but not even really because almost everything is still open on holidays. That's why there's holiday pay.
According to legend, young Bill Gates built his computer empire out of his garage. Reality tells another story, that Bill Gates was born into wealth and privilege. Both his grandfather and great-grandfather were banking moguls. His father, William Gates Sr., was a prominent Seattle-based lawyer and political lobbyist. Through his father, Bill Gates learned the ins and outs of law and politics and how to manipulate those governing forces.
I'm Bill Gates, chairman of Microsoft.
Bill Gates dropped out of college to start Microsoft. He is credited with inventing the operating system that became Windows. However, he played no part in the invention of Windows. The fact is, he bought an existing operating system from Seattle Computer Products, had it modified, then licensed it to IBM. That didn't stop him from taking all the credit.
I don't see Bill Gates as this great creative person. I see him as an opportunist.
While Microsoft's co-founder Paul Allen was struggling with cancer, Bill Gates seized the opportunity by attempting to cheat him out of his share of the company's fortune.
They were basically talking about how they were planning to dilute my share down to almost nothing. And it was really a shocking and disheartening moment for me.
You was sick?
Well, I think I was still probably in the middle of radiation therapy.
Gates' business strategies came under fire in 1998 when the United States Department of Justice sued Microsoft for antitrust violations.
This is take 3 of the videotape deposition of Bill Gates on September.
During the 18-month trial, Gates gave hours of videotaped testimony.
What were the non-Microsoft browsers that you were concerned about in January of 1996?
That month.
Yes, sir.
And what about it?
What non-Microsoft browsers were you concerned about in January of 1996?
I don't know what you mean concerned.
What is it about the word concerned that you don't understand?
I'm not sure what you mean by it.
The Justice Department has charged Microsoft with engaging in anti-competitive and exclusionary practices designed to maintain its monopoly in personal computer operating systems.
In a move to overshadow the negative press, Gates invested $100 million to set up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
That guy's a snake, man. Ugh, that's disgusting. That kind of person really makes my skin crawl. Like, they just don't care about anybody but themselves and their money and how they can keep all of that money. Ugh, what a disgusting person. Real quick for YouTube, the following clip is opinion only. Please do your research.
The real reason why nicotine is being banned throughout the whole world is because it's literally the only thing that destroys nanotech. Here in this video you can see how the nanoparticles in dental anesthetics
are the most important that you will watch in today's world. Rafa Calvin from La Quinta Columna is looking at dental anesthetic at 100 times magnification. You will see the nanotechnology, the microchips that self-assemble. And we've already seen those in the Pfizer vaccine and other injectables. Rafa has dried out the sample for 30 days, and then he is looking at the sample under 100 times magnification. You will see hundreds of nanotechnology and microtech. Rafa then mixed 1 gram of tobacco in 5 cc's of distilled water and let it steep. He then puts a small amount of the tobacco in the water mix with a pipette onto a slide on top of the dental anesthetic. You can now see that the nanotech is totally destroyed by the nicotine mixture. Dr. Brian Ardis stated that nicotine was the very thing that could destroy nanotechnology.
I do not endorse the use of nicotine or tobacco, but I had heard this a lot and it's very interesting. To say the least, I don't know how accurate that actually is, but like I said, it is interesting.
I still think it's really crazy how people still haven't caught on how the food industry works, on how a product or an additive is approved for our consumption or use on our bodies or in our bodies. Aside from the animal testing, which millions of them sacrifice their life that are purposely bred just to have a product tested on them to see if it's harmful or not. Aside from that, it is up to the corporation, the one selling you the product, who wants to make millions of dollars. It is up to that individual to provide the scientific research proving or showing that their product is safe for consumption or use. We don't have a special team of scientists that overlook chemicals and additives and products on a daily basis to see whether or not it's good for us or if it's good to consume. That's not how it works. That only happens if someone gets hurt or an adverse effect has been reported. Then the FDA or some health regulators will step in, do a little research, and recall something just to figure out what the problem is. But with the wide range of 10,000 plus additives that we have on the market, with that wide range in combination, we're never going to know or pinpoint which additives are harming our body. It's the company selling the product or the food additive or the healthcare additive to you provides the scientific research papers to the FDA or health regulatory system in order to have it approved. It's brand new. We know nothing about it. Either does the FDA, but they read the research paper, kind of makes sense to them, and they'll be, okay, well, we'll approve of it, but we'll bring it down a notch so we don't consume too much of it or use too much of it. These are the regulations. Follow them. How do we not know that those papers weren't falsified or that a scientist or a researcher wasn't paid in order to manipulate the papers to be in favor of the corporation so that corporation doesn't have to wait 30 years, 25 years, or whatever long-term research they need to do just to skip all that so they can make millions right away? How do we not know they are not falsifying that? Trust is everything. Trust is everything. You're going to tell me you can trust the FDA, you can trust Health Canada, you can trust the European Union?
Yeah, the FDA is pretty much crap. It's pretty much crap. It regulates itself. They do whatever they want because they can, and it's all for money. That reminds me of Wow potato chips. If you're old enough to remember that in 1998, Lay's came out with the Wow potato chips with Olestra, and it was giving everybody severe diarrhea. It was recalled after a while, but they were out for a minute, and they had a little tiny disclaimer on there that said, may cause loose stools. Case in point. Put it out, something bad happens, pull it back in. Do you like conspiracy theories? Do you like interesting, informative, and thought-provoking content? Well, it's time for this week's shameless plug. I've recently befriended someone on TikTok that provides that exact kind of content. Here's their page. Too Much For You with underscores. Okay? Check them out. Every single clip that I got today is from their page. And there's a little bit of everything for everybody. You can go over there and scroll through their stuff, give them a little bit of time. One more time, that is Too Much For You. Thanks so much for sticking around for this week's shameless plug.
You age, your glutathione levels go down. If you eat certain foods, you beef up your glutathione. Plants need glutathione to survive. Under drought conditions, glutathione levels go low and then they come back up. What we discovered was when they do the genetic engineering of plants, particularly with the Roundup Ready soy that Monsanto does, it actually makes the plant weaker. It's no different than a bodybuilder taking steroids. You know, their testicles shrink in some sense. So, which they do. So when they give these plants, when they genetically modify soy in this case, the plant actually is weaker. And if they plant the seed, the plant can get attacked by the soil organisms. So first of all, they created genetically modified soy to survive Monsanto's pesticides. Okay, and then they have to put neonicotinoids around the seed to survive because it's a weaker plant, and the neonicotinoids affect the bees. Okay, the bees can't find their way home. So it's a complete farce.
Okay, that was thoroughly confusing. It sounds like they're doing a whole bunch of things that are canceling other things out, which cancel this out, cancel that out, and then they're harming the bees, which is doing more harm than good. Is that right?
A city in Belgium offered 3 chickens per household to anybody that wanted a chicken. They had 2,000 families raise their hands and says, yeah, we'll take 3 chickens. So they got 6,000 chickens, distributed them through this city. First month, it dropped 100 tons of food waste to the landfill. What? And so not only did they eliminate the landfill waste, all these people now suddenly had chickens. And Pat's done all the math on this and shows that if 1 in 3 households had enough chickens to eat your kitchen scraps, there would not be an egg industry in the United States. It would be completely non-essential. Really? So that's the power of integration. That's the power.
It's about the money. It's the money. That's why a lot of places are regulating backyard farming and roadside egg stands. And it's the chickens. The government needs their chicken money. And it's a trickle-down effect. You have chickens, you put less stuff in the landfill gets less money, which has less money going to the city, which has less money going to the government. They need that money. Plus, you're not buying eggs. They need their chicken money.
So it turns out that ByteDance can't legally sell TikTok to the US, and our Congress people knew this, and that's why they put the certain language that they did in the bill. They genuinely found a way to take away our First Amendment rights and blame it on the Chinese government. All of this starts back in 2020 when Trump tried to sign that executive order that would ban the use of TikTok. Literally 1 year prior to this, the Chinese company that owned Grindr was pressured and basically forced to sell their company to an American owner. When the American government was once again trying to steal a Chinese business and the technology from that business, China updated their foreign trade laws. In 2020, they added a new restricted export, which would be personalized information push technology based on data analysis. Essentially, they restricted everything that goes into TikTok's famous algorithm. So because that technology is on the restricted list, they must get permission from the Chinese government to sell it to the US. This involves getting a signed letter of intent, contracts, a technology export license. All of that has to be obtained before you can even legally start negotiations. However, in 2022, America started restricting the semi-precious material that go into chips that are used in AI and a lot of different technologies. However, 5 months ago, Biden announced that they were going to make it even stricter. The chips we were now sending to China had even less capability, and the government started requiring manufacturers to notify the US government if chips from this list were being sold to restricted countries, such as China. And so because of all these factors, China is absolutely not going to let this sale happen. The people who wrote this bill knew what they were doing. They absolutely knew what they were doing, and that's why they tried to rush this through committee and through the House vote before we figured it out. So why are they trying to shut down this app? Israel. This is their way of getting us to shut up about you-know-who so they can continue to take AIPAC's money and do nothing about the war crimes. AIPAC has already dipped into a $100 million war chest in an attempt to unseat pro-Palestinian lawmakers. And this complex scheme all boils down to one very simple thing. This is what they are desperate to stop. This was the behind the doors classified information. TikTok will be gone. We need to make it clear to the Senate that if they support the TikTok ban, they will be out of jobs.
Censorship. That's what it's all about. And they know that they are unable to sell it, and that's why it's worded the way that it is. But it's censorship. They want to control all of the information that you consume. They said at first that it was about information, but the United States government, they're constantly collecting information on us through our phones, through our computers, through our credit cards. They're collecting information on everything that we touch all the time. And then they just shifted gears and said, oh, it's about the children. No, it's not. It's censorship. It's censorship.
So in Justin Trudeau's Canada, and this is a fact, folks, the people who worked and paid taxes their whole lives, senior citizens, get about $900 a month to live off of. But he's letting in immigrants. He's giving them, for a family of 5, is getting $54,000 a year from the government, from the same taxpayers that are only getting $900 a month. They're getting $54,000 a year, and they're getting $8,000 to furnish their home when they get here. So explain to me how that works. And I'm not blaming the immigrants. Listen, if I was in their shoes, I would do the same exact thing they're doing. A government offers you free money, you freaking take it. You don't blame the immigrants. You blame the incompetent government and their incompetent immigration policy.
I hear you, sister. We're doing the exact same thing here. And she is so right. It's not the immigrants' fault. It's the politicians' fault. Because if a country is giving away a bunch of free money, I'd go get it. On that note, I'm calling it for today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Please come on back tomorrow. We're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things. It's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.